First and foremost, I want to start out the video by explaining Biologix did not ask me to do this video. Biologix is not paying me to do this video. I approached Biologix and asked if this would be an opportunity they'd be interested in, because I think it's crucial for individuals to have a better understanding of exactly what they can expect from Biologix and what Biologix can do for them. There's a lot of bad press and bad reviews, but that just isn't the case. And of course, the more upset voice is usually the loudest one in the crowd. So I'd like an opportunity to advocate what Biologix has done for me and given me. And first and foremost, when I was going through this and I was looking at some of the reviews when I was posting my reviews, there were a lot of angry individuals who felt like they had been scammed by Biologix. And I can understand and relate to that pain and that frustration and that disappointment. And it's completely understandable. Most of us have been sick for so long. I know for me, I'm going on my 7th year. I'm in my 7th year of having this illness. And just like everyone else, I've had, dozens of doctors. I've had, pill bottles that just filled my cabinets, and supplement bottles, and, over a dozen ER visits, and countless nights where I just was ready to give up. So I understand that anger and that frustration, but where perhaps I have done something different than those individuals have, I'd like to share that, because I think this is what makes the biggest difference. You see, when I got sick, I was in college. I'm almost 40 years old, and I went back to college, in my early 30s. And I went back to college. I went to mortuary school. So I'm a funeral director. And I was sick and I had no answers and I had no one helping me, but I was currently taking classes like microbiology and pathology. And so I had already had testing done, and I knew the infections I had. I knew that I had like the Bartonella and the Babesia, Candida, of course, the Lyme itself. And so I started studying its makeup. Like, what does it thrive off of? How often does it reproduce? And what's its defenses against? And then I started to understand how food played such a crucial role in my quality of day-to-day life. And in all honesty, I had horrible food habits. I'm an individual, I'm not a good cook. And so I ate out a lot and I drank a lot of soda. And I was still eating a lot of gluten. And of course, I love chocolate. So I had a lot of really bad habits. And so I spent several years, like I said, treating myself like a guinea pig in all essence. I had to figure out what worked for me, what didn't. I can have no gluten, dairy, egg, or man-made sugars. I know that in my body, number one, it feeds certain bacteria. Number two, it causes mass reaction within my gut, and so my stomach inflames. Number three, I have no energy and I feel absolutely horrible the next day. And that was really hard for me, because that was a lifelong learned behavior and habit that I had, and I had to break that in order to give myself and my body a fighting chance and some strength to fight back what was going on inside of me. And that took many years to get down pat. And I still, I still eat bread sometimes. I love bread, right? But just in really small doses, because I would much rather just not have the bread than deal with, the fatigue and the inflammation the next day. So I spent, like I said, 4 or 5 years doing this and studying this. And I went through the doctors that prescribed me 7 or 8 antibiotics. I was on Ceftonir, Cipro, Bactrim, Flagyl, you name it, right? And it was killing me faster. I mean, I looked like I was 80 years old. I walked hunched over. I was weak. I could barely eat. I vomited every single morning like clockwork. And I was going to the ER 3 to 5 times a year because the vomiting was so bad that I would pass out and become so weak. So they'd have to, pump me full of fluids and kind of like this little cocktail of Benadryl, Reglan, and Toradol for the pain, the nausea, so that I could start eating and get my strength back. And so it's been a horrible cycle. You know, I am a widow with two teenage boys, and I don't make a lot of money in all accounts. I'm considered, I think, you know, poor because I don't have a lot of money. This disease makes it so you aren't reliable for a job or dependable because you never know what's going to happen to you. And so last year, my husband passed away in 2021, and I you know, I of course went through the grieving process, and that in itself will turn your body upside down. You know, our emotional maturity, right? Our relationships, our ability to cope with things, it plays a major role in individuals with Lyme disease and co-infections. I mean, this is a multi-system interruption. Okay. So I had to learn how to control my emotional responses better. I could not let everything somebody thought or said bother me, because if I did, I'd be down for the next 2 days. My body would just be depleted from the emotional exhaustion. Last year, I found Biologic. I'd been doing some research on Biologic prior to coming there. I love the quantum physics, the science of the healing that they utilize there. And what most people don't realize, and they get a bad rap for, you know, they call it voodoo medicine or it's all a scam, but that's not the case. And if you take the time to study the body, and you don't have to be a doctor, you don't have to be in medical school, you know, you can get a book from the library, and you will learn that at a cellular level, people like myself and others with this disease are disrupted. All right. So most doctors only attempt to band-aid or try to fix the symptoms, but they aren't really looking for the root cause. Why? Most of them, I don't believe, have the education enough to do that. And number two, they can't work within a lot of those parameters because insurance does not cover a lot of the correct testing, and the FDA doesn't cover a lot of the things that are needed to truly help uh, healing a natural way. You know, people like us that are this sick, we cannot put more manufactured chemicals into our body. You know, we're born with some form of a homeostasis, and this is our body's normal. And when we get sick like this, it's completely interrupted. So, in order for us to get better, we have to think naturally. Everything that's normal for everyone else cannot be normal for us anymore. It just can't. And it's a hard reality to face, and it's not fair. I mean, let's call it for what it is. You know, it sucks. But you have to make peace with that and accept it if you want a quality of life. All right. And Biologic is has broken through and is willing to help you get there. Maybe not in, you know, society's conventional norm, like what our medical community considers true, you know, pharmaceutical medicine, but we cannot have that. We have to have true healing. And Biologic uses a natural approach to healing us because number one, it's a lot less invasive to our bodies than all the pharmaceuticals. Okay. And then jumping around from, you know, five doctors, you have five doctors in your network, but none of them communicate with one another. Right. So none of them know what the other one's doing. And so it's five separate plans, but it's one person, and it's not fair. So the treatments at Biologic, you may not have heard of them. You know, a few of them I hadn't heard of them, but you know what? I looked into them, and it it is not a miracle cure. People need to understand that. Not one time did any doctor at that facility or any staff employee tell me that I was cured, that any of my infections were gone. Okay. What they said to me, right, is that they were going to try and help me get my body back in control of itself, right? Teach me, right, how to, you know, eat the right things and educate me on how to understand what my body's trying to tell me, right? Because ultimately, we have to fight for ourselves. This is our body, and we're going to have to live with it for the rest of our life. And Biologic is it's expensive. I mean, that's one of the biggest things. And when you look at the reviews, That's a big thing. Like I said, I don't have money. My dad and stepmother took from their retirement that they built for 40 years, and they took $20,000 out and they put it there. Why? Number one, I knew what I was talking about. I knew the research. I understood that this is what I needed. I hadn't just thrown money at every other treatment hoping it would work. I invested in myself. Okay. And I'm glad that they did that, because when I went there, my hair was falling out. I had acne really bad. I had lost 18 pounds in 3 weeks, and I wasn't trying to. I could barely eat. My stomach, the smell of food, just looking at food just made me feel so sick. And I stayed 3 weeks. And when I left there, and every day since has been the best quality of life I have had in 7 years. All right. Now, I have a role to play in that. Part of that is I am disciplined on on what I eat and my lifestyle, right? And who I have in my life too, because let's be honest, this is a very isolating disease. And even our family members don't understand it a lot of times, and can feel confused, or perhaps like we're faking it. It happens because there's just not answers out there. So it's so important for you guys to understand that you have to fight for yourself, and you have to understand that Biologix is one of the best tools that you can have in your toolbox to help you. And yes, it's a lot of money, but if you go there and utilize them and listen to them and then apply that knowledge every day after you leave there, you will have a quality of life. But you have a role to play in that, and you have the biggest role of all. Biologix' job is just to, number one, the testing. The testing that they gave to me proved exactly everything that I felt, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I couldn't understand why I was so tired, yet my mind is screaming at me to get up and go. I'm a motivated individual at heart. So the fact that I'm having to lay in bed, I'm exhausted. And then I'm even more exhausted because I'm laying in bed. Well, come to find out, that's because at a cellular level, my mitochondria function was not working correctly. And if you look up mitochondria, you will learn that that is the energy producing part of the cell, in layman terms. So, and then there were other things that were wrong. Like, for instance, when I was on the antibiotic Flagyl years ago, I could not understand why only this one area, my body would just have this horrible reaction. And it's come to find out because I have a very high intolerance to grapefruit seed extract, which is utilized in Flagyl, right? And these doctors think I'm crazy. I'm telling them, look, no, I'm itchy. It doesn't feel right. My toe on my right foot feels like it's burning. It's just weird. But after the testing, all of those weird things that I could not explain were explained. All the dots got connected. All right. That in itself was healing. Okay. That gave me some peace of mind. It gave me some hope, some understanding, and it gave me a little bit of more control over myself. All right. Which allowed me to be even more open to the healing process. I got bit by a spider, and it wasn't a tick, it was a spider, and it was on my right leg. All right. And there's like this little dot down there, real small, that stayed there this whole time. And I remember I'm laying in Dr. Farney's office, first time meeting him, fully clothed, so you can't see any spots on my body. And, I'm telling him my story, and he's using the resonance scanner, and he's going to my body. He stops right over that bite, over my jeans. Couldn't have seen it. He said, "This is where you were bit." He knew, right? Because my body was telling him. Whether we want to believe it or not, our body has a way to communicate to us. It's just most of us don't understand how to speak its language. And you are going to have to invest in understanding what your body's trying to tell you, and invest in a complete lifestyle change if you want quality of life. People like myself, we are never, I hope there's a cure one day. I would love it if there was a fix all, but more than likely that's not going to happen. And in all reality, our way of eating and living with this disease is so much healthier overall if you don't have the disease. It's a better way to live. So for me, I wanted to be kind of like the middleman. I want to share my journey with those of you that are looking at Biologix, for those of you that are on the fence about it, I want to share my story with you. I'm going to continue making videos so you can see the progress. I left Biologic in September of 2022. I have continued the supplemental regimen that Dr. Farney gave me when I left. I also purchased the CES Ultra machine, which I've been utilizing this whole video because honestly, I was a little nervous, and I wanted to be well spoken. And that CES machine affects the vagus nerve, which affects our anxiety and just our overall production of certain chemicals that can make us overly anxious. And I feel quite calm. It's just sitting on my ear, clipped on, doesn't hurt. I eat well. I have cut certain people out of my life, unfortunately, but it just caused me such emotional turbulence. And if I had such a physical reaction to that emotional disturbance, that it's not worth it. And I am continuing my education. I am always journaling and writing. I'm pretty good about my food. Like this morning, I had blueberries, a little bit of trail mix, and some Canadian bacon. That's typically my breakfast in the morning. And I always drink good water. I like Core or Body Armor because the type of water you drink plays a huge role in it as well. And I've had a little portable infrared sauna for 5 years. I utilize that 4 times a week, typically in the morning before I go to work, to help with the detoxification and the circulation, because of course it forces oxygen in and helps oxygenate your blood cells, which helps increase circulation and a whole bunch of other goodies. So for me, I guess the takeaway for this first video is if you're on the fence about Biologic, do a little bit more research. Do a little bit more research and ask yourself, am I really doing everything that I can do myself in my day-to-day living to help myself have better quality of life? Because remember, what you put in your body today, food-wise, is how you're going to feel tomorrow, right? And I'm hoping that these videos will help educate people a little bit and see, I'm not rich. This is a person that's walking the walk, trying to talk the talk and share with you, not advocating because I'm being paid, because I am not. Just because I feel like there is no one really out there for us advocating and sharing their story enough to say, we have responsibility in this. We cannot just go to a doctor and be cured and have a fix all. It's not going to happen. And it's not fair to yourself, or to the doctors you see to put that kind of standard.